Hi everyone, my name is Ph.D. If you have a Mac version, this presentation will be very helpful for you. But before I start and talk about how to use this software, show you NVivo Mac software, I'm going to give you an introduction to NVivo. NVivo is a software that you can use to analyze your qualitative data. We have different versions. We have the Mac and the Windows versions. Before I give you more information about how to use the Mac version, let me give you an introduction to qualitative analysis and also coding. In this presentation, I'm going to talk about qualitative analysis, types of analysis, coding strategies, types of coding, and then I will give you an overview of NVivo Mac version. So the version I'm going to show you is NVivo 14, which was recently released. What is qualitative analysis? So as you can see here, it's all about preparing your data, reducing your data, trying to develop code to represent the data that you have. But it's also a way of summarizing the data. You are trying to reduce the data. Think about qualitative analysis as data reduction. You have received a lot of information from participants, or you have collected a lot of documents. So what do you have to do about it? You have to go through all of the documents and try to develop codes and themes so that you'll be able to address your research question or meet the purpose of your study. You have to summarize. But this kind of summary should be in a very systematic way. You start with reviewing your data, trying to go through and to better understand your data, and then you extract significant information that you think might help you to address your research question, and you'll be able to develop goals and themes to help you to meet the purpose of your study. Most of the time, you start the data analysis process by coding, and I'm going to talk more about that. From coding, you think about sorting. Sorting is all about grouping the codes into categories. At the end of the sorting, you'll be able to develop themes, and then you can also look into the connection between the themes. Based on that, you can even develop a theory. So these are the steps that you could do to analyze your qualitative data. And my book here is so good. It gives you step-by-step information about how to analyze your data, provide you practical steps that you could follow that will help you to make sense of your data. So there are many types of qualitative analysis, but the two main types that you may be aware of are the thematic analysis and content analysis. Thematic analysis is all about going through your data, generating codes or generating labels. The labels can be codes or themes. You go to your data and develop codes and themes based on the data that you have. So this means that you don't come to the data with already pre-developed themes or codes. You allow the data to speak to you. You allow the data to tell you what exactly are the significant information and what kind of themes or patterns that you can see in the data. It's quite different from content analysis. Content analysis is more of first you generate codes and themes. We call it coding frame. You can generate codes or themes based on maybe their theoretical or your conceptual framework, or based on the literature that you have read. You develop that code and themes, and then you go through the data and identify significant information from the data and connect them to the code and the theme that you have already developed. So that's the two main types. Your analysis may have some element of thematic analysis and also element of content analysis. So sometimes you'll be quite maybe in the middle, right? But it's very important for you to know the difference so that you know what you are doing. Are you going to the data to develop themes and codes, or are you bringing in your own codes and themes and going to the data and connect them to the significant information? So that's what you have to think about and decide. What is coding? Coding is simply looking for relevant information. The question that we always have to ask yourself is, what is relevant, right? What information in the data that is relevant? Any information that you think can help you to address your research question is relevant. Any information that you think can meet the purpose of the study could be relevant. Any information that may meet the objectives or the aim of the study is relevant. This means that not all the information that you have in the data is relevant, right? So you always have to think about, okay, is this information really helping me to address my research question or to meet the purpose of my study? And going through, you'll be able to identify those relevant information. And what do you do next? You extract that information, you take that information out of the data, and then you give it a label, which is tagging or coding, right? So the code is just a label that represents the significant information that you have selected from the data. So that at the end of the day, you have that code helping you to address your research question if you have research questions. So that's all about coding. You go through the data, identify significant information, and then you label the significant information and then connect it to the purpose of the study or your research question that you have. If you're doing content analysis, you go through your data, identify significant information, and then connect it to already developed codes and theme, and that will be coding. There are many coding strategies. Strategy is all about what are the ways that you can use to construct a very good, appropriate code that will help you to address your research question. The two main types are description-focused coding and interpretation-focused coding. For description-focused coding, you are extracting significant information and making sure that you understand what you have extracted, right? Then based on your understanding, you develop a label or a code depicting what you have extracted, representing what you have extracted, at the same time, helping you to address your research question. So that's all about description-focused coding. You are describing. So the code is a description of the information that you have extracted from the data. And we also have interpretation-focused coding. This one is used when what you are looking for from the data is hidden. You have to first make sense of that information, especially when you are analyzing documents. Your research question, based on your research question, you are looking for something that maybe is not obvious, right? When you look at your data, you have to go through, identify significant information, and try to make sense of the information, interpret the information. How do you do the interpretation? You think about who produced this document, or who did you talk to? What is the person background? What is the person intent? Getting background information will help you to understand or interpret what a person is presenting to you. So you are making sense of the information, and then based on your understanding, you develop a label, which is a code representing your understanding at the same time addressing your research question. My book gives more information about these kinds of coding. So getting access to my book will be very helpful if you want to really get a detailed understanding, a practical understanding of these two types of coding strategies. Another thing that we want to talk about is the types of coding. We have manual coding, and then we also have qualitative software-aided coding. Manual coding is more of you are not using any software. You can print out a transcript or the data that you have and use pencil and maybe pen and note card, and then go through your data, underline the information that is significant and write it on a note card. You can also use Microsoft Word documents to do that, or you can use Excel. So manual coding is more of coding your data without using qualitative software. If you click on this link, that will take you to how to do the manual coding. I have that presentation for you concerning that. And I will be putting a link of this presentation in the description section. You can get access and also subscribe to my channel so that when I put any new video, you'll be notified and you get access to the videos that I'm going to post. Also share my videos to your colleagues so that they can also learn about qualitative analysis, coding, and also how to use a software like NVivo. The second type of coding is qualitative software-aided coding. There are many software available that you could use. One is NVivo, another one is Mass QDA. We have QDA Minor Light, we have Atlas TI, we have Deduce, and we have a whole lot, right? But I always tell my clients that you just have to explore and see which one you feel comfortable using, so that you'll be able to use in a way that will help you to develop the codes and themes and address your research question. What they have in common is that the software helps you to organize the code that you have developed. So this means that, you'll be able to go through the transcript and then identify significant information, and then you can create containers and drop those significant information into the container. The containers can be called codes or themes based on how you look at it. But normally we start with the codes, and then we can develop themes after you have your codes. So these are the software that you can use. But for this presentation, I'm going to focus on NVivo Mac. You start the process by importing. So you have your inputs, right? You are importing all your data into NVivo. So you can import your transcript, you can import your video, you can import the audio, you can import your document into the system, and then you can create cases or containers that house all the information about each of the participants. You can also create containers for your research question so that you create a code under each of the research questions. You can run word frequency, you can search words and see how participants use a specific word. And in terms of the output, you can create code book, you can create a list of code in Excel format. You can also create word cloud and word tree, and you can create many things there. I'll be showing all the things that you can do with NVivo Mac version. Let me just give you an overview about the process so that you really get a big picture before we use the software. The next video will be how to use the software. So let me just give you a brief information. So the first one is data preparation. Imagine that you have interviewed participants, you have interviewed about 5 participants, you have their transcripts. So you see here that I have 5 transcripts here. If you have their demographics, if you want to also send their demographics into NVivo in terms of their age, gender, and any demographic information that you are interested in, you could create a table in Excel, and then what will happen is that you can upload that table into NVivo, and that information could be connected to their transcript. If you don't want to do that and you still want to send their demographic information, so what you could do is that you can create their demographic information in NVivo. So you have options. The easier way that I see is that you can create your demographics in Excel, and then you can import that into NVivo. It's either created in Excel or create it directly in NVivo. That could be done. I will show you in my next video. And you have to assign labels to your research question, especially if you have specific questions that you want to address in your study. I always advise, don't go through your data without having a research question or without having a purpose. Are you just going through your data because you just want to see the recurring themes or what they are talking about? Or you're going through your data because you want to address your research question? Or you're going through your data because you want some information to connect to a specific theory? There always should be a reason why you are going through your data. And normally the easier way is to go through your data based on your research question. So in case you have your research question, you will label them. As you can see here, what are the causes of burnout among primary healthcare physicians? I label this question as burnout causes. That will help me to create a container called burnout causes, so that when I create themes or codes, I can put them under the research question that I want to put, right? So you can see the second research question is about solutions. So I said burnout solutions. First, you have to assign labels. So you see here, you assign labels. The label doesn't have to be perfect, but it should represent your research question. If you are going through the data with research objectives, you can label your research objectives so that you can go through the data and develop things based on the objective. If you are going through the data based on maybe a specific theory or conceptual framework, you can create containers based on that so that you can go through the data on that. If you are doing content analysis and you have developed coding frame that's developed themes and codes to help you to go through your data, you can have those labels ready for you to be used in NVivo. And also you have to determine the coding strategy. For this one, the coding strategy will be description-focused coding because the information is right there. It's not hidden. Participants were asked about the experience of burnout and the solution. So you have that information there. So you don't have to dig and try to find out the reason behind what they are saying or the interpretation. Because that information is there, you can use description-focused coding. After that, you import your transcript. In case you want to use Excel spreadsheet, we call it classification sheet. Make sure that the labels for your transcript are the same labels for the participant ID. So if you use a pseudonym, you can use the pseudonym here, the same thing. If you use numbers and letters, the same thing here, so that when you import the demographics, the system can match participant demographic information to their transcript. So you see here that I've uploaded the transcript into NVivo. I have also uploaded the classification sheet, Excel spreadsheet that has participant demographics. Then the next step is to create containers for each of the research questions. So you see here the burnout causes and burnout solution, and in parentheses, research question 1, research question 2. The most important thing is that create containers that represent your research question so that you can organize the code under these containers, under these research questions. At the end of the day, you'll be able to address your research question, right? So imagine that you already created containers for your research question. You open one of the transcripts and go through, identify information that is significant. So you can see there, you look for significant information. I see here that long hours is a significant information addressing the first research question. So I select that and I first create a container having long hours. That's the code under research question 1 because it's about the courses. Then what I do is that I drag and drop this information into the code that you have created. And that's all about the coding. You go through the same process, then you go through the second and the third and all the transcript, identify information that is significant, you create containers and then drag and drop them into that. You can see that some of the containers have 4 references. 4 references means that there's 4 significant information that has been dropped into that container. So this means that I went through my data, identified significant information, and then I drop it. The most important thing that you have to understand is that these are the containers that I created, the code that I created under each of the research question. And then the files are the number of participants or the number of documents that are connected to a specific code. So for here, being a young physician, you can see here that it's 2. This means that 2 participants or 2 transcripts are connected to this one. And then you can also see 2 significant information. 2 statements were extracted from these 2 transcripts and were dropped into this container. So under research question 1, we have 5 participants connected to this question and also 14 reference, 14 significant information. The files sometimes are called case counts. Case counts are the number of participants connected to a specific code or a container. And then code counts are the number of significant information connected to a specific container. For solutions, we have 5 case counts and also 12 code counts. Then we move to sorting. When you finish coding your data, you have to go into the next stage, which is sorting. Sorting is all about grouping them based on similarities, putting them into groups based on what they have in common, so that at the end of the day, you have group participants into the various clusters or groups, and then you can label those groups. So when you label them, that label will be the theme addressing your research question that you have. Don't worry about this one. I will show you in a practical way, but I just want you to get a big picture of how this one is done. Normally, before you do the sorting, you have to export the list of the codes. So you export into Excel spreadsheet. You can do the sorting in NVivo, but it's easier when you export the codes and then do it outside and then bring the themes back to NVivo, and I'm going to show you how to do it. But the most important thing here is that you export the codes, and then on Microsoft Word document, you can create a table, put the codes that you have here, right? This one is for research question 1 into clusters based on the similarities. And then at the end of the day, you label, you do that the same thing for the second research question. And then for the first research question, you look at the content here, the codes that you have here, and then label the cluster. So based on this content, this is the label that was given to the information here. So having high workload, being new to the profession, based on the content here. So based on the content here, you label the information, you label the clusters that you have. And as you can see here, we have 4 clusters, and those labeled for the cluster will be themes addressing the research question. So you see how after the sorting, you have themes addressing your research question or addressing the objectives of the study or the aims. And then next one is to bring the themes back to NVivo, and then you create containers for each of the themes. See here, I've created containers for each of the themes, and I drag and drop the codes under their respective themes. So you can see here that having high workload, these are the codes that are under. Having less time for family, these are the codes that are under. So you create containers for the themes and then drag and drop the codes under their respective themes. This is also for the second research question. After that, you can do some visual representation. This is called word cloud. The bigger the font, the higher the number of time participants use that word. So you can see here that the participants use burnout a lot. They use physician a lot. They use long march, medicine, time, healthcare, profession. They use that information a lot. This one is word tree. I'm going to show you how to do it. You search for a word like stress, and the system can provide a word tree for you, showing words before and after the word stress. And also, if you want to compare cases, files, or themes, you'll be able to do that in NVivo. You see here that this case is for P1 and this one is for P2, and you can see what they have in common. These are the things that they have in common, and these are the things that they don't have in common. So this is what I have for you. If you want more, if you want me to speak to your organization about research at GPT and how to use NVivo, how to analyze the qualitative data, I'll be happy to do that. You can email me. This is my email address, info@drphilipedu.com. You can also book one-on-one consultation with me. If you're analyzing your data and you want more information about how to do it, I'll be happy to help you. And I've already talked about this book. It's very helpful. If you want to get a basic understanding of how to analyze your qualitative data, this book will be very helpful. This book too, The Theoretical Framework in Phenomenological Research, is also very good. If you are doing a phenomenological study, this book will be very helpful for you. It breaks down the concept of phenomenology and help you to translate all those terms into doing research. The last book that is also very useful is if you are working on your dissertation, the book Dissertation Research Methods will be so helpful for you. And it has all the information about how to write your dissertation chapters, and looking at it from the methodology point of view, this book will be very helpful for you. If you have any question, you can put it in the comment section and I'll be happy to address them for you. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for your time. And watch out for the second video where I will show you how to use NVivo Mark to analyze your qualitative data. Thank you.